terrible idea. I don't have very much battery life left, but you know what? I'm in the mood to film this, so we're doing it. So I think the number one question I get is a combination of, do you speak Chinese? And how on earth do you get by in China without speaking Chinese once I answer the previous question? So, in case you don't know, I've been living in China for about 8 months now and I do not speak Chinese. So how does that work? Obviously there's a lot of cons to it, but let's start with the 2 good things that I notice about it. Number 1, I actually tend to be more observant because of my lack of language skills. So what this means is, like, if Eric and I are going out and we're looking for a certain location, I'm more likely to find it just because I'm operating off of instinct and visual cues, while Eric is taking the time to actually read signs and read directions. Eric is my husband, by the way. So it's really funny that, like, I feel like I tend to be more observant because I don't speak the language, which I've never even considered that as a possibility. Number 2, I am not obligated to participate in daily conversations. For me, most of the time, that's not a good thing because I am an extrovert, so I like having conversations with random people. But sometimes, you know, you're in the mood to not talk to people, and so it's kind of great because I don't have to. Although Eric also has pretended to not speak Chinese in the past so that he didn't have to talk to, like, salespeople. So I suppose even if I did speak Chinese, I could X out of the conversation basically by being like, oh, I don't speak Chinese, sorry, I'm American. There's definitely a lot more cons than there are pros when it comes to not speaking Chinese. The first one is that it's really, really hard for me to communicate my dietary preference. I really don't eat much red meat and I don't eat dairy, and I try to avoid fried food. So I have, like, these dietary preferences, but I can't ask questions, and Eric already has to, like, read his, my husband speaks Chinese in case you haven't figured this out, but Eric will be reading the menu, and, like, it's really frustrating because at a restaurant a waiter will come over to you and stand there and wait to take your order until you're ready, like once you sit down. And I'm already a bad decision maker and I can't ask the waiter any questions, so I have to put everything through Eric. So it's just this really frustrating scenario. So that really gets old after a while. Something that I still struggle with is riding cabs. I do not feel comfortable riding in cabs. And I've been in China for 8 months now, which is a little crazy. I've ridden in cabs by myself twice. Both times I felt super anxious, and I tend to, like, feel really apologetic for not speaking Chinese. Like, I'm always like, oh, buhai, so, like, I'm saying, like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I just feel bad for whoever is, like, at work and has to deal with me because it was my choice to not speak Chinese when I first came here. If you want to know more about, like, that choice, I'll link the video above where I talked about it. But basically, anytime I'm, like, trying to get help from somebody and I have to use, like, a combination of my broken Chinese skills, like limited Chinese skills, and my Chinese language app, I'm always so apologetic. I'm also constantly walking by storefronts without knowing what they are. Like, in my neighborhood, I probably know what half of the things are that I walk by. Sometimes there's really obvious cues. Like, I know the word for skewer, like I can read the Chinese character for skewer. It kind of looks like a skewer, so it's whatever. So, and also the smell, like you can smell that there's skewers there cooking. So things like that where it's like I either recognize one character, they have a green cross outside, which means it's a pharmacy. I can smell that they're making something in particular. I can see the product that they have. They've got clothes in the windows. Like, I have to go off of visual cues and instincts and, like, other senses because I can't read the storefront names. That being said, I do know a little like the tiniest bit of Chinese. What I've learned from being here are basic survival characters that I need to know in order to make my way around. The very first thing I learned when I came here was numbers. That came within a month of being in China. I could count to 999, like, within several weeks of being in China. It took some practice. Like, I used to walk up my stairs and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, I used to count all the steps because I lived on the 5th floor when I was in Nanjing, and I used to, like, just practice my numbers going up the stairs. And the reason I needed to learn that is because my husband has either been at school or at his internship while I am at home working on vlogging and blogging. That means that the house chores chores and everything are left up to me. So I have basically, like, without sounding like I'm being forced into some kind of gender role that I don't want, that's not how it is at all. I have the housewife duties. I do most of the shopping and like groceries and making food and everything. I really don't know too many food words, but numbers became super, super important because I do most of my grocery shopping at the local markets. So when you go to these markets, you walk up and you can point to what you want, like chiga and nigga, that's like this and that. Like I point and just say those two words, and I know that second one sounds really rude in American context, but it's not, it just means that. It's actually naga, but they just pronounce it differently here. So anyway, I can point at things that I want, but at the end when they're saying a price, they're usually moving so fast and they have other customers, so they tell me the price instead of showing it on a calculator. So I do know my numbers. So if I go to the market and I'm gonna go buy a bunch of groceries, I gather everything I want into the basket. That's kind of how they do it at the like produce stands. Throw everything you want into the basket, you hand it to them, they tell you a number at the end. I understand the number. That's really all I know from that situation. And I know how to ask how much something is. 多少钱? I hope I'm saying that right. That's essentially me asking how much does this cost. So I do know how to say this, that, numbers, how much does it cost, hello, thank you, goodbye, sorry. I know those things. Several months later, I had a full grasp of the characters, the pinyin, and how to speak and understand north, south, east, west, entrance, exit, gate. I know all those ones because it became really, really important for me to understand those words so I knew where I was going. I actually have this little necklace with a compass on it, and I used to use that, and I don't really anymore. I tend to just not wear any jewelry except like my wedding rings. From like me stopping wearing that necklace, it made me like start to learn. So that's a little bit about my experience here in China, getting around with limited language skills. It's been a big problem in a cab in the past, and it has been a big problem with our bike repair guy actually. Sometimes when you don't speak the language, even if you know how to say like 听不懂, like I hear you, I don't understand you. Sometimes people will still keep talking at you, and it becomes really uncomfortable to me, especially when it's like a store setting. Like I've gone into clothing stores in the past where they wanted to help me. I don't know if they were working on commission, but those are really, really stressful situations to me. So I tend to avoid that kind of stuff when I'm here now. But that just means that I am outside more. I tend to spend less money. That's just a little bit about my experience. If you have a specific question for me, or if you want me to make a video about a specific topic regarding my time in China, let me know. Now what I want to do is give you guys my top tips for surviving in a country where you don't speak the language. First of all, hand gestures and miming can get you a long ways. For example, I recently had terrible eczema on my hands, which as you can see is gone now. And that's because I went to a Chinese pharmacy. I used an app, which we'll get to in a second, to look up the word eczema. I showed her the word, I showed her my hand. I went like this, like I want a cream for it, not like a pill or anything, I want a cream. And she was able to recommend something to me, and it worked, and now that's all fixed. So that's an example where like miming, like I was like, is this cream? Like I'm asking like, is this a topical thing? She kind of got what I meant, and so that worked well for me. There's been a lot of situations where miming has gotten me what I needed. Another big tip I have for you, and this is harder to do than it is to just suggest to you, but learning a few necessary words can seriously come in handy. Before I came to China, I learned how to say, where is the bathroom? My camera just died. What I was saying is that it's really important to learn how to say, where is the bathroom? I learned that in Chinese before we came here. Some other important ones are just thank you and sorry. Those are so important. I use those two on a daily basis here in China. Once you know those few words that you're gonna need like on the fly, like, oh my God, I have to pee, where's the bathroom? Done. Oh, they did something nice for me, thank you. Oh my gosh, I just ran into them, sorry. Those are really instantaneous things that might happen, and so you want to be like ready in your mind for them. Other things like the eczema cream that I was talking about. Or for example, when we first moved to Beijing, I was trying to find a kitchen knife. These are the kinds of things where you probably have a little bit of time to prep to like ask about them before you get there. In those cases, it's really handy dandy to have a language app on your phone. The one I recommend for China, hands down, it's what every single foreigner here uses, Pleco. There's all kinds of apps though. Google Translate, I mean, I know Google Translate's not the best. It doesn't work very well if you're gonna type in an entire sentence, but it does work really well if you need to type in just a quick common phrase or just like a single word. So apps are very helpful. Another tip, like I said, hand gestures and miming, super important. If you don't have any language skills, pointing at what you want is the absolute best way to get what you really want. For example, if you're at a restaurant, this can be really awkward, I understand, but you know, it's really awkward to not speak the same language, so you just gotta pick your battles. If you're at a restaurant and you see someone order something and it comes to their table, it looks really good to you, you can point at it to your waiter. I've always been told that it's rude to point in China. What I've discovered is people point here all the time. I don't know where on earth people are getting that from. The thing is they tend to not point like with their finger, they tend to point like with their whole hand. They point like that. But my point is pointing at images or objects. You get like a visual dictionary, or you can like draw something for them. Pointing, super handy. I do that at the markets all the time. Like chiga. Now this one is if you're really trying to play like the dumb girl, which like I'm not trying to like look dumb to people, but I just kind of end up looking that way. Smiling, nodding, and laughing. Yeah, that's really important to know. That can be a good default to smile and nod and laugh. That's a great default to have. You probably won't offend anybody by doing those things. If someone is talking at me in Chinese and I've already told them like ting dong, I do not understand, sorry, I don't understand, I have no idea what you're saying, and they know I have no idea what they're saying, but they keep talking anyways, I just smile and nod and I laugh. Really awkward, but you know, it's a thing. This one is super important. Patience. Having patience for other people and for yourself is so important. The reality is that when you don't speak the language in the country that you're in, things are going to take longer. It's just the way it is. You need to give yourself more time and you need to be patient. If you don't, you're gonna find yourself really frustrated and probably hating your time there. I kind of have slowed down my rhythm a little bit when I am out. If you need to take a cab somewhere, give your cab driver some time to navigate, look at his app, look at your app, look at your map, your directions, whatever. Be patient, like give yourself lots of time because things are just gonna take longer. Another really important tip, accept your lack of skills. And actually, it doesn't matter how much of the language you speak. I swear, if you are a non-native speaker, you just have to accept your lack of language skills. Even Eric sometimes has to do this. And Eric speaks very good Chinese. He still has to accept that he doesn't know things sometimes. This is a process. This isn't like, okay, I accept it, I'm done. Like, this is like every day you need to accept the fact that you don't have the language skills. And I don't mean that in a self-deprecating way, just in a way that like you can enjoy your time and you can be happy. If you accept it, you can move on from there, you can learn, you can get what you want, you can get what you need. The very last tip, which is super random, subways will be your best friend. And not Subway like the restaurant. Not Subway like the restaurant, that's not what I mean. Subways, like subway systems, will be your best friend. I cannot speak on most subway systems in the world, but I can speak for China for sure. Chinese subway systems have a lot of English and they have a lot of pinyin, which is the written out like Chinese. There's like newspaper falling all over. I think someone just threw it outside. When you see Chinese words that are written out in what looks like English like letters, like for example, Beijing. There's Chinese characters for Beijing, and then there is the spelling out Beijing. That is pinyin. Subways will have the characters, they'll have pinyin, and they'll probably have English. Subways are how I get around, and the cool thing about it is that when you need to go buy your ticket, there's a little button down in the lower left-hand corner that says English, and you can just push that button and the rest of it is in English. It's great. So I hope you learned some valuable skills for getting by in a country where you don't speak the language, and I hope you learned a little bit about what it's been like for me to live in China for 8 months without speaking Chinese. It sounds crazy to me, like, it'll be weird to go home and people will be like, do you speak Chinese? And I'll be like, nope, They'll be like, how on earth did you survive in China? And I'll be like, here's this video. If you have any questions, any video suggestions, topics you want me to talk about, I want to make videos for things that you guys want to see and things that you guys want to learn. Thank you for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Okay, bye!